hacking like fuck.
Right, and we're live. They can see you, Astral. Hey, good evening, everybody. Today is the 9th of June for us, 2018. It's the 10th of June for James in New Zealand, but we've got Astral with us and James from New
And
Zealand.
it's the 9th of June here. It's
Yeah,
my
9th of
son's
June.
16th birthday today, so happy birthday, Oliver. I
Yeah,
have
happy
already said
birthday,
it.
Oliver.
I have already said it to him. But hey, welcome, James. How's it going, brother?
Good, thank you. It's been quite the few weeks I've had. I have a new role that's quite, it almost feels like a university degree, getting a class 5 license to drive really big trucks. And so that's been quite something. It's been very good.
Yeah, because you had a bit of time off, didn't you?
Yes.
It's good being a truck driver, is it?
Now it's like amazing. Now it's like myself as a little kid in a sandpit because I drive a truck and trailer to go and get compost from the recycling centre, bring it to the business, and then we mix it with dirt, and then we've got the stuff called veggie mix, which is screened topsoil with compost mixed in with it, and it's very, very nice. And so my job really is about bringing 10,000 tonnes of this compost into this place. And this is going to be a long time, and it's just diggers and trucks, man. It's just, and so I'm having a ball. Really, it's really cool.
Pleased for you, James. Really pleased for you. Before we actually get going and talking to you, I just wanted to say, James, I don't know if you know, but we had a hangout via Flat Earth Dude last night, and he took us to the meetup in California, and then he talked to a load of people, and then he obviously said hello, got Patricia and Mark and Rob Skeeber to say hello to us, and we had Russian vids on there. The people were talking, the chat room were there. It was amazing. It went on really late, so I'm a little bit tired. And the other thing I wanted to say to you, James, although this isn't, I don't think you'll have a big opinion on it, only that it's interesting. It's just because we're going to be talking to you about your stuff in a minute. They found some elongated heads here in the UK. And we were talking to Marie Wheatley earlier on in the week, and she reckons that these elongated head people had an extra chakra, and they built the long barrows. And anything that's a long barrow, they built those. We built the round barrows. They built the long barrows. But it's just interesting. They had another chakra. So I just thought you might find that interesting with what you're going to talk about. And now we're back to James, and good evening, chat room. James.
Hi.
How long, have you been doing this? Like what you're going to talk about, like this whole concept.
Yeah.
When did it come to you?
Now, look, that's well, it came to me because well, actually, the a critical point in the path that I've been on was when I had designed this new wheelchair, right? And I announced I was frustrated I couldn't get any traction with investors and things because they didn't trust this new thing, and I may have been presenting it poorly considering the audience, the values of the people I was talking to. But I made a public announcement that I had retired and resigned from the human world of politics and emotions because it was really it was too fraught with strings and things, but to completely grab onto the creative spirit, as that's what I was doing, and that was a profound moment, and here we are. Given that loyalty to the creative spirit, which is consciousness, right? Being blessed with this miraculous thing that I've discovered, and but back in the day, man, like you talk about
What have you discovered, James?
Well, I've discovered that the reason why the media, as a very kind of obvious example, how the media always talking about problems, always talking about problems. That's you know, while all the problems have their genesis in an anxiety, right? The media talking about problems all the time is promoting anxiety as virtuous. And then, you know, while all the problems have their genesis in an anxiety, that's a pattern of circular logic.
Can I say
Yep.
something, please, James? I'll tell you why the media are talking about problems and things all the time, because that is exactly what they created to talk about that day. Because the media, they don't make news like news stories. Nothing is like real, or maybe only a few percentage of what we hear from the news is real. Most of it is just prefabricated bullshit. You know that. And if you don't know it, James, you ought to, because they just make this shit up, you know. It's all steering the people. Which way do we want them to go? Left, right? Is it blue today or red?
You know, there's a deception there. It's actually what I believe. They have their relationship to their money, okay, and they have their relationship to people with more money, right? And so they get to be in the media, to be on the media. They get membership in this exclusive club, and they believe that they're speaking for these people that they look up to, and they talk about all these things, how they talk about them, because they won't. They do not want to talk about themselves. Okay. So their values are that they want to keep their attention well away from their values, because they are trying to stay as the aristocracy. And but you know, the media. I thought the media, they're into this conspiracy, and it's like they want to give everyone anxieties, man, because people who have anxieties need more emotional crutches, right? And so I thought that they were doing that, you know, it's like the Illuminati and it's all that. And I thought, then I realized actually these media, they are just people. And actually, that's when I made the realization that the values that the people, wealthy people in the media and all that, the values that they have are exactly the same values as everyone else, except they're in that, they find themselves in that situation. So in that format, it looks completely different from this other format, but actually the values are exactly the same, except this format does not contain the wealth component, and that, and in saying that, it doesn't have the wealth component, which means it doesn't have that political component. You know what I mean? So wealth is the introduction. You know, it's the way to get into the political sphere. And so, and anyway,
hang on a second, James. Wait, did you say that wealth is not related to politics, or did you say vice versa? What did you say, please?
As wealth, and wealth is your admission into the political sphere, because everyone, all poor people in the middle class, as the discovery has revealed, believe that anxiety is virtuous.
And it's only because
when you've got
money, money buys. What does it buy you? Whatever you want it to buy you. It's a corrupt world we're living in, isn't it?
Okay, right there, there's a point I can make. The real political situation is that, according to consciousness, having money makes it seem like you have more consciousness, because you have more options, you have more things. Okay, they are nice things. So this is actually, according to consciousness, it seems like they have more consciousness. Okay, and so,
I don't get that. Hang on.
Yeah. Well, anyway, and so there's this demarcation. There's this demarcation because they want to separate themselves from everyone else, which gives value to their political sphere. You know, it makes them more exclusive, you know, and so then they can say it's them and us, and that gives rise to this instance of creating words to describe your chosen enemy, right? And then that enables you to like distinguish between the two. We are different, you know what I mean? And so as you know, one thing as per the character of consciousness, you know, this is the battlefield of planet Earth, and so yeah, and so one other thing is this. I thought that the greatest realization I made before getting onto this discovery was that if we are all concealing our anxieties and we are allowing other people to conceal their anxieties, we are allowing them to do that. We make accommodation for them to do that. That means everyone's been lying through their teeth. And so that was really the catalyst to make the discovery that I made that I'm going to write into the book.
Yeah, and it also makes you a very articulate person, because James has understood, right? Because we all get to where we are with who we are and so forth on our journeys, but he realized that all the words you're using are spells anyway. So you be careful with the words you're using. So he's very articulate with his words, aren't you, James?
Thank you. No, you know, I'm an advocate of consciousness and the voices are the expression of consciousness, and it's absolutely in keeping with that relationship, right? To have a good vocabulary, and so, but this is a product of there's been a lot of mileage in this path I've been on. Because, you know, it can seem how much you take 5 minutes, right? You take 5 minutes, well, 5 minutes with people, you take that, right? 5 minutes with people, and then you get 5 minutes with consciousness realm. So there seems to be literally 10 times more activity than in 5 minutes with people, you know what I mean? And that's like the spirituality. That's like what I believe is Caucasian spirituality, right? And that's what's happened. So in that time with consciousness, you can cover so much more ground when it comes to developing an understanding. And you know, at first you must learn to learn. You know, you must learn to be able to listen to what's being said before you can actually understand it. And then once you're familiar with that, then you can actually, he's taking on things faster and faster. You know what I mean?
Can I ask you something, James?
Yes.
What consciousness actually means to you, or what you think consciousness actually is?
It's a miracle, mate. I'll tell you what. Consciousness, this is this human energy. I call it human energy, but that's seeing it from here, right? So it already pre-exists, people. It pre-exists, and see, it's difficult to explain it when everyone thinks that religion is the monopoly on understanding of it. You know, here's what I can say is consciousness, right? What I've observed is that the reason, you know, why does it feel good to see your friends? Okay. And then we've got love. Why is love awesome? Why is love the most amazing thing ever? I think it can be said that for consciousness, to say what consciousness is, we can see what it does, which is, I think 1 + 1 = 3. because when you get near your friends, it feels good because your consciousness is expanding. And what is consciousness, right? Well, it's invisible and it just exists as a dynamics of life. I mean, it's why we have feelings, I think. And so what is this experience we're having where this all dominant feature of human beings is completely invisible? And so it's one of the greatest things of my book is to qualify consciousness. And how I intend to do that is by how I have qualified anxiety as a political entity. And in doing so, you can figuratively hold it in your hand and look at it, right? And so in doing so, you can actually, you're looking at it from consciousness because you've figuratively separated yourself from it. And so to say what consciousness is tricky because it's, as I say, it's not a case of there being an elephant in the living room. It's that we're living inside the elephant. And so consciousness creates all of our reality, really, because it's the whole way our brain functions.
James, right. You are 17 years old. There's a piece of paper in front of you, and you're sat at a desk with a pencil in your hand, and on top of the paper it says, describe on this piece of paper what you would think or what you describe consciousness as. Let's keep it simple, try and in a simple that's all I was asking. I mean, I know you're deep and it's lovely to hear, on that level. But I'm just thinking, like, in a like layman's terms, you know what I'm saying? Consciousness.
You're asking me this question. So what the truth? I give you the truth and the answer to the question. Okay, to absolutely my best ability. Okay. Now the truth of this is there is the explanation of consciousness, which kind of I've just given actually. It's just the actual behavior of the spirit, the nature of spirituality. It's, consciousness is why we have feelings, and you see, it's such an alien concept for this modern civilization to consider what is consciousness. And I know up till now there's been a lot of romantic kind of pining for it's like people are in mourning, actually, the way they talk about it. And so there's that part of it. There's describing the behavior of the character of consciousness, which is those things that I've said. And so, but the other half of it is that it has for all time, consciousness has been made to look like it doesn't exist.
Well, James, in the chat room, playing permaculture, consciousness, put our spirit living out life with awareness via soul.
Yes. Yeah. That's right. It's an awareness. It is why we're intelligent.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely an awareness. But that's the thing. Consciousness. What is consciousness? Where does consciousness come from? I mean, this is so deep, and we all have this consciousness, right? We all have it. This thought we have. Who creates the thought? Like someone said the other day, the thinker or the thought? What came first? And it's profound questions. You know, we are beyond. We need to be beyond what we are. We need to be beyond our little realm of, you know, existence where we are here. You know, I mean, I'm thinking like, you know, that's why I'm called the astral thief. You know, I'm thinking a little bit higher up there, kind of thing. Something.
Right,
Something beyond where we are now in our own little physical realm. This is nothing. We are absolutely nothing. We're of the earth, humankind, little humans running around like little ants, like what we are, and we're nothing, literally. Of course, we are special, extremely, but at the same time, we're insignificant in some ways, because what we are, we're yet to evolve into. We're yet to see, we're yet to find out. You know, I believe that we're still on a like low level stadium of our existence. You know, however you want to look at things. This is my own personal view. I'm not saying everyone should believe in what I think at all. You know, this is just my own little viewpoint. You know. Anyway, I yield the floor, James.
Consciousness is also about being here and now, because that's leading into this stuff that you're talking about. They've got us so dumbed down. So, like I've said it myself in one of my little videos, but the future looks really uncertain with these wars, you know, chemtrails, this whole thing, and what's going to happen politically, the whole thing. And then behind us, we've got depression, wars, people working really hard, quite poor, you know, there's all that. So that doesn't look very good. And of course, right now they're just using subversion and a kind of communism to break up the families, make you feel useless, worthless, ugly. You can't talk to each other. So there's no real consciousness because no one's thinking. That's the one thing that Crow77 said to us. They've got us so into debt, bills, working, life, children, this, that, stress, fear. We haven't got enough time to think. And consciousness is about being here and now. That's what makes us. We don't realize we're always here and now. We always think we're nowhere, but we're here and now. And this is the kind of stuff that you're into, isn't it, James?
That's right. That is exactly right. And
what it is they're making money out of our fear. They make us so fearful of everything, ourselves, the future, everything. And they're making money out of it, and that's this point of this stuff you're talking about, isn't it?
The money thing, right? They're making the money in that, and they have control, and it appears it's by virtue of money, but actually, you know what? The middle class knows.
What you're saying is they've made you think that money is virtue.
Yeah, money is virtuous. Yeah, that's right.
But it isn't.
Well, it's not.
It's just money.
They promote that idea because the real thing is that it's a political leverage thing. Now, that there proves that consciousness is real. See, this is the thing. Yeah, the question there before was describe what consciousness is to a young person. And you say, I don't think we need to do this because what's more important is to prove that consciousness is real, because everyone has consciousness. Everyone actually has that massive cognitive power that consciousness is. And see, I don't need to tell people, well, in what I'm doing, and I don't describe what consciousness is to people, because that would then allow them to perceive it from where they are. And the truth of it is, they are conscious. They have consciousness. What they've got to do is know that consciousness is real. And that's the thing that's wrong. So the answer to the question, what is consciousness, is to say consciousness is real, because everyone already has consciousness. And you know what? There's two things uniform with all people. One is they have consciousness.
What it is,
Two,
they're just making it a society that doesn't realise that they're conscious.
but I'll get to that. And two, they have the culture shock event of birth, which brings the values of anxiety into existence. So when you're talking about consciousness in real time, the real-time telemetry of consciousness is that it has been hijacked by anxiety. And so this is where I would prefer to continue speaking according to the values of consciousness, which means there's 10 times more data in the situation than to someone who doesn't know what consciousness is, what's palatable to them. And so the thing is, to describe what consciousness is a good, effective, like equitable kind of a thing to do is to describe how people have been messed up by believing that anxiety is virtuous, and the thousands of events in one's life that serve to validate that belief, because everyone around them is believing the same thing. And so everyone's trying to get political credibility by proving their loyalty to anxiety, because anxiety exists in the affirmative. Okay, anxiety exists in the affirmative easily 80% of the time. And in the affirmative, when anxiety is in the affirmative, it doesn't look like anxiety, it looks like wisdom. And that's the problem. And so to know what consciousness is, the reality is to people alive now, to know what consciousness is, they have to know what anxiety is and how anxiety exists as it has hijacked consciousness. Because mostly consciousness only exists as a victim of Stockholm syndrome because it's been hijacked by anxiety. And but in simple terms, consciousness is the universe, man. The consciousness is the universe, and it is everywhere. And so it's difficult to see the forest from, if you're sitting at the bottom of a tree in the forest, it's difficult to see the whole forest. And so the great milestone that I want to have happen is to produce this qualification. And so then this can begin, because how can we, if we have this thing of consciousness, and in all this time of history, it has been made to seem like it doesn't exist. So as language has developed all along here, there's been no language to support the subject of consciousness. There's been no language because it's completely subverted to the duty of loyalty to anxiety. That's what our language has. It's hand in hand with that, right? With the political kind of landscape, right? And so there's no language to really, there's no language to go with the description of consciousness, because consciousness exists in an entirely different way than our physical experience. And so this is a great problem, that there actually is no language to support talking about consciousness. You can describe it, and as I have been, it's describing the character and the behavior of consciousness. And that's why this miraculous discovery is completely.
And what they're doing is they're using our consciousness.
Yeah, they are. Okay, on that one, yeah, they are. Because they know that works, and that's I've mentioned that like so many times in my vids. They use a replication of the function of anxiety as it events in the mind, And that's why it seems really credible. And that's how they can get away with what they're doing, because in the individual mind, after the event of birth, the culture shock event of birth, and because of how consciousness only exists right now, it brings all those emotionally traumatic events with a person, and those traumatic events still exist right now. And so in that relationship, as the newborn baby is attacked by anxiety, okay, that also is brought with us now. And so that's why this replication of the functioning of anxiety is so effective. Under these circumstances, it's really effective. That's why religion has endured. You know, the blooming royal wedding there, they had the royal wedding in a church, and then there's this big religious component of that wedding, man, really big. And so this is the political position of religion in civilization, in Caucasian societies. And this is all to do with the culture shock event of birth and how consciousness acquiesces to anxiety, and how there's no language to support challenging that. You can't even think about that. You can't even talk about that. That's how the mind gets shut down. And so all of this is evidence of the character of consciousness. And so the best way to tell what consciousness is, it is to express about the character of consciousness, and that's what my discovery is. As consciousness is mainly expressed only when it's hijacked by anxiety. That's actually an effective way of describing consciousness, which is the thing of the discovery. It's qualifying anxiety as a political entity, but it has inadvertently qualified consciousness as real, because anxiety couldn't exist without consciousness. You know, and anxiety replicates the function of anxiety because consciousness acknowledges anxiety, and that's why it keeps. That's how anxiety keeps controlling consciousness, which is the relationship, Karen, between the state and the people that you're talking about.
I thought when you were saying things then, it's easier in words to say what consciousness is. It's actually harder to describe it, if you know what I mean. When you're talking about your stuff, it's easier to, I don't mean this to sound rude, but reel out words, what it means. But it's actually harder to actually say it when you actually asked it, isn't it? It is.
It is. No, it's right. It's just like this.
I think the best thing to do is generally think about the question first, you know.
Yeah.
And it's, well, a simple question, but quite profound, you know. And in that sense, I would say that at least give it some thought.
You know, you're right. But the thing is this, is that you ask, what is consciousness? Consciousness is limitless cognitive power, man. It's this world teaches people, as you've said, Karen. I'll put what you've said in a different terms. You know, the world has been trained to function only with a static cognition. And that's why you get the same situation. That's why there's no development of society. That's why we're not flying around in flying cars. You know, that's why the banking system doesn't treat people with love. You know, it won't do that. And because of the static cognition that anxiety brings, the 8 laws of anxiety, it's a static cognition thing, right? And you have a finite answer. If you have a static equation, a static algorithm with only a set amount of parameters in the algorithm, right? You can have a static answer. You can have a singular answer, end result of that static
What?
thinking.
One word, you mean? You can put it into one word.
Religion. No, that's just what I'm saying. It's just you get that one ultimate answer, and so that's how religion is possible, because it's a static. Anxiety is a static equation, and so that's why you can have the static answer, God, or Satan. But actual factual of it is that consciousness is of it's fluid cognition, and there is no end to possibilities. There's no end to development. There's no end there's no end of the supply of new answers. And also, I am going to believe there is no end to the means to make new language. And so you get these two situations. This world believes that in the static cognition equation, which is the 8 laws of anxiety, well, we know that we have fluid cognition. We know the future is outside of current understanding. As can be said for my political party thing, one of the big problems in New Zealand is that it is conventional wisdom giving us all these problems. Now that's a statement, right, that cannot be refuted, I believe, and that is conventional wisdom giving us these problems that won't seemingly disappear. We can't seem to fix these problems.
Yeah, you've got a bigger plan that you'd love. You'd love the education system to change, wouldn't you, with your idea?
Yes, that's right. In New Zealand, right, we have this thing called NCEA, which has got a name, but it's called NCEA, and it's the national body of standards. So they basically mark all the school kids' work, right? And then you get what's called unit standards, and you get 1, 2, 3, 4. You progress up and you get all sorts, And but on their website, they've got their philosophy and all that, and they're designing the curriculum. This is for high school. They're designing the curriculum under the understanding that in the future, only 40% of the jobs that we have now will still be happening when robots take over everything. Now, that is completely corrupting the education system, believing that. For one, it's totally corrupting the education system by prejudging the outcome. By saying that, what jobs are going to be going. This has nothing to do with education. This has nothing to do with the development of the cognitive ability of a child. It's got zero to do with it. This is political. This is totally political. And see, people don't realize it because of this static cognition inside the elephant situation civilization has found itself. That's prejudging the outcome by saying that our whole social environment is going to be like this in the future. Because they're not talking about taking over lots of roles with robotics, right? They're not talking about that actually. They're talking about, well, they think they are. That's what they're saying. But what the consequences of that is the whole of society is going to change. Now, this business of thinking AI is really useful and robots are going to take over all these jobs. And they're crying out, oh, we've got the skills shortage. We haven't got enough skilled people. And, this is all fraud, okay, because they have this idea of how they want their political situation to carry on. What will save us? They're thinking, what will save us? And so they're instinctively intuiting what will save them, and that is to make more people poor. They'll feel safe. Their money will feel safer if more people are poor, and they have no way of challenging them politically. Okay, and this is exclusively to do with the relationship to anxiety, which is the anxiety is operating under the cognitive power of consciousness. Okay, so that's how anxiety seems so diabolically skilled at messing with people's heads and messing with of society's heads, right? It's because even though anxiety is anxiety, it's still it's hijacks the cognitive power of consciousness. And so, yeah, the education system, right? So really, so
what's the book you've written? What's it called, James?
Well, it's called The Observed Morality of Civilization.
Say that again.
The Observed Morality of Civilization. Because it is. It's exactly what it is. My discovery is 100% observation of behaviour and beliefs, and all these facets that intermingle with all these different other facets, you know, and it's the general summation, is the conclusion of observing and acknowledging everything I can see and have experienced. And a lot of those rabbit holes were found with just a small opening, like the instance of the media and religion constantly going on about problems, right? And that is like promoting anxiety as virtuous. And it can't be argued with, I don't believe, that religion just promotes anxiety as virtuous, you know. And so I got a big waffly sentence, like literally PhD level waffly sentence I'll say about religion, right? Which is, religion has been exclusively derived from the senior elements of the political correctness of anxiety. Okay, because all of the behaviors of religion and what it threatens and what its aspiration, these are all exact replications of what anxiety does. And the behavior of anxiety in the mind, right? So there's a massive difference between believing in anxiety as virtuous or buying into that, or it's like email, you know, if everyone around you uses email, you've kind of got to use email to talk to them, right? So this is how mostly everyone gets tricked into operating in this way. If everyone around you believes that anxiety is virtuous, and believe it or not, it's the political optics that really do that. As a little baby that does not have language, there is only the political optics of what's going on around them to actually use to think with. And so mainly the true political economy of the world is actually all about the political optics of things. And so once you start seeing things like that, once you start actually analysing the political optics of the big features in your environment, like climate change, like the flat earth thing, like electric cars, you can see the political optics, and that is actually our civilization. Our culture really is a product of the political optics of what the individuals around us are doing, but also the groups of individuals, and then the whole country, and then the Western world, and so yeah. So educationally, I changed the education system pretty much, man. You see, they like to have problems, Karen, as you're saying, and so they think they can make the economy better by focusing on problems, and this isn't working out too good, eh? But according to the people that are the aristocracy in the establishment, right, they think that is working out well, because if they are the aristocracy because of the belief that anxiety is virtuous, and things are pretty crappy, well, then they've done their job, haven't they? If they've got to their position by promoting anxiety as virtuous, then they've done a good job. It's making things like shit for everyone. Then they think they've done a good job. because they secretly know that people believe that anxiety is virtuous. All these poor people that love God.
Part of their subversion, sort of like communist thing they're doing to us, though.
Right. That communist thing, the communist thing, this is the political correctness of anxiety. See, that's the big standover communism does, or did do. It uses this mechanism where it's put to people that you're doing really badly, and it's because of these people. They did this to you, so now you have permission to go and attack them. Okay, that's the political correctness of anxiety. That's what anxiety does. That's replicating the function of anxiety by giving yourself justification to attack. Okay, anyone in the world can compete with other people, like economically. You know, you can do that. You can start a company. You can start a company and go in competition with other people, and you can easily play that game by just, you know, charging less money, and then you start taking their business off them. And this is how it works. So thinking that, oh, you need to just smash the establishment, see, that's anxiety talking, right? It's just, and so communism, that's how they did it. They used the political correctness of anxiety as their leverage, because when a mind has an anxiety attack, right, there is nothing else that exists. There is no other option that exists for that person but to believe in that anxiety attack is happening.
When you say all that, James, it just seems really incredible when you think that you've got all those news people waiting outside, say like 10 Downing Street, they're going to make an announcement, everybody's waiting anticipation, when really it's just part of the program and the game that they're playing.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like, this is almost, I always find the same words. It's just incredible, just the amount of lies and the levels, the whole thing. It's just, it's so nasty. It's so nasty to do that to the people.
Well, this is true, Karen. It is incredibly nasty because it is replicating the function of anxiety. Okay, and an anxiety experience in the mind is nasty. It's that's sugarcoating it as per what the actual experience is like to have. And so, you know, here's a situation, right? Here's a situation. What if, here's my theory, okay? You get the jurisdiction of the 8 laws of anxiety, static cognitive situation, right? Algorithm. I say that civilization has reached the limit of development possible within the 8 laws of anxiety, right? It has reached the absolute limit of the political of political development. There's no more. So what they're doing is they've created this environment where smaller and smaller things become really contentious, which is why the media love Twitter. You see, because they can't go above to where there's no more development possible, and so they're coming backwards in like some echo, and so they're making the smaller and smaller things really important, man. You know, because according to their aristocracy and the way they're controlling the people, there is no more development possible, because otherwise they would lose political status, and the community and our culture, the Caucasian people, we would seemingly then be more politically relevant than they are. And they can't have that. You know, they can't have that. And so that's why this big thing about like feminism and sexual assault and all these small little things that are actually a thing of perception, actually. They're making that all the big news about fucking what's important. Actually, it's a massive lie, because what it is that the public
very left brain. It's very left brain stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that can be said. Yeah.
You know what? Those long barrows, right, had a lot of women buried in them, and it looks like things were different then. It was obviously a lot more female then, and then in some thousands of years or hundreds of years, it's gone very left brain.
Yeah, well, this is true, and I'll tell you what, Karen, in my experience on this planet, women have always been revered. I mean, men are ordinary, right? Women are really special. Women can cook. Women know how to homemake and make a house nice. You know, men, that's definitely not a man thing to do. Women are very good at critical thought.
Well, maybe our generation's like that. My son's generation, he does all the he orders the food, baths his daughter, cooks the food.
I know. See, that's
It's
the
a bit
problem.
different maybe today.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And you know, your son.
I was born right. My mother, well, one thing she always said was that we're all like equal. Men and women are equal. But our generation isn't like that. A woman's place is in the kitchen. That's our generation, where our family have come. That's our family behind us. The 60s was a bit different now. And then now today, my son does the shopping. You know, that's part of his life.
Well, you know what? I do the shopping for me because I'm single, right? And I also cook for myself too. Oh, wow. Now, look, you know, this is the thing of my political party, right? I bring the revelation of the 8 laws. Okay. Now, the revelation of the 8 laws is going to be written out, and I'm going to state very clearly the actual truth of people. Okay. And that is that women are, you know, why did men at one point used to, you know, take their coats off to put it over some mud so a woman could keep her shoes clean, right? Okay. And that's an indication of the culture of how men felt about women generally. They are, you know what? They are very special. The woman is extremely special, and so it shows you how that they would promote something so contentious and so blatantly offensive to the natural instincts. It shows you that they're replicating the function of anxiety, and that's the thing with my political party. I'll come forward with this.
I'm not sure if it was worse behind us. Maybe that sort of time. Maybe because we can't. There's just you can't really maybe go back and find proof right now. 17. You can Victorian times and stuff like that. You know, like papers and more books and stuff like that. But maybe they were nicer then, but with what's happened to me as a child, and when I talk to a lot of people, it seems to have happened to them as well. I'd say the bit behind us was really, really ugly. We might be ugly today, and it's sort of getting uglier, but then now a lot of people with this consciousness you're talking about are waking up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I think it's pretty ugly just behind us.
You know, well, that's the point of what I'm doing, is this political party thing, and going forward like that. It's to qualify, you know, because like here's the thing. Here's another aspect of what I see has been going on a long time, and you know, really, that's an open-ended question. How long it's been going on? Without the means to qualify consciousness, okay. You know, we haven't had that before. And that's what I've created. Okay, so here's the thing: while people think anxiety is virtuous, it evaporates the concept of wisdom. Now, because they think that anxiety is wisdom, it also evaporates the concept of anxiety, and that's why seemingly nobody knows what anxiety is. Okay, so.
Is that because people actually don't even understand the words? Because we realise now that, you know, words mean different. Like we thought, you know, it meant this, but it doesn't actually really mean something else when you actually look up the meaning. But sorry, they have sort of, that's how they've educated us.
Yes, that's true. That's right. That's exactly right. And there's that reason why nobody sees a reason to challenge that. And so that's addressed in the discovery as well. And so,
you know what though, James, can I just say that a lot of people in the chat room and, you know, maybe watching this video and who call themselves flat earthers would say that that's where they are with their consciousness. It's the living dead out there that need to get with their consciousness.
yeah, well, it's that they are unconscious. We are conscious. They are unconscious. They do things in an unconscious way. They do things in a way that where they believe that anxiety is virtuous, which is unconscious, right? And so we are conscious, and we know there's a solution. We know there is a means to go to the truth, right? We know the truth is there. We know it. And see, I think this. I think I go back to the old Druid belief. The first law of the people of Celtic, you know, the Caucasian beliefs back then when the Druids were the scientific community, is that we are here at all is we've won. This is the ultimate success in all of the universe, is that we're alive and we're people and we're the ultimate vehicles of consciousness. And this is like the truth of it, man. This is like the most amazing thing there is. And that there in itself, this is the big conspiracy to conceal that from the people, right? This is what religion is all about, and it's what they've played on heavily all the way through here, as you're saying, to subjugate society. And this one truth that we here are alive is the most miraculous thing, you know, and that gives us all the power. That gives us all the power. That one truth gives us all the power over their political aristocracy, which is based on anxiety, the belief that anxiety is virtuous, right? And so it's quite spectacular, you know. And another, you know, senior belief was that nature deserves all respect. Nature deserves all respect. So when the English, right, they went up to Scotland, right, back in the Braveheart days, right? And the English thought, oh, the Scottish look really barbaric and, you know, they're uncivilized. And it's like, actually, no, they'd achieved a unity in like a symbiosis with nature. And actually, they couldn't develop beyond that because then they would be out of balance with nature. Right? So they lived with nature. Okay. And so in the consciousness realm, that may well be considered very civilized to believe that and not value exceeding development beyond that, because that actually is the height of civilized life, being in perfect harmony with the nature around you, right? And so these are the kind of political optics that really are seriously, they put serious effort into making sure people don't realize this, because then they would see it would diminish their political status if they did it.
Then they would lose control of the people.
Right, that's right. But would they lose control of the people? Yes, they would. But who do they represent? Why have they been elected?
Not us.
Well, actually, they have been elected to represent the people.
Yeah, but they don't, do they? And that's why we've got heart concerns. This is why they're doing things military that we don't really know anything about. This is why they invade countries when the people don't want it. The people aren't even really fighting. It's them that are fighting, them that are causing this.
Right. That's exactly right. That's the whole reason wars happen. It is not the fucking people. It is these few people. And so it's basically down to people who want to sell arms. They promote conflict. You know, all the rest of us, we have our jobs. We like seeing our friends. We have our hobbies. We like to do some traveling. We like to see what's going on around the place, you know, and go to a car show or, you know, down the theatre or something, you know. They think very differently to the community. And so that's again what we're observing their behaviour is they are replicating anxiety. Because not only do they cause a lot of conflict, They want to control everything. They want to control the media. They want to control business activity. They make all these social rules for us, like the big push.
I have to say, James, being like a flat earther, you know, we kind of know a lot of that, though.
Yeah.
You're not here. You're that part. You're not preaching. We're all kind of converted, you know. We've all woken up. So yeah, to us, we don't want. Well, I don't watch the telly. Well, occasionally it's on, but I'm not watching. I used to watch all the soap operas.
Yeah, well, they're drama, aren't they? You know,
Yeah,
drama.
It's just junk. It's
Something I
always
used to like
junk.
Jeremy Kyle. Like, oh yeah, but that's only there to show that nobody gets on. Everybody wants to have affairs, and nobody cares anymore. All we want to do is shout and argue. That's what he's there for.
Well, my minimum reducible argument for Jeremy Kyle is he promotes anxiety as virtuous. He facilitates argument.
Yeah, all those programs are just junk, aren't they? I mean, gosh.
To conscious people, they are junk.
Anybody who watches those, I mean, seriously, they're just garbage.
So if they weren't on the TV, you know, because women have been attacked. Women have been really attacked by the media and the establishment. And it's because men actually really love and look up to women. You know, it's the experience of, you know, your mum when you're a little kid. Your mum was everything. She was nice.
Can I tell you something, James? When I did like bit of sociology, but not as a flat earther, like when I'm talking about, you know, being a teenager, when I was sort of putting things together, it seemed that the wars, what it did was women, up until that, men had roles in life. So the man was more or less out. I'm not saying every single family, but generally the man was outside in the garden doing the farm stuff, the car stuff, the garden, whatever. Yeah. And the woman was inside the house. But then when the wars happened, the women had to go out to work and then do the man's bit as well. And then when these men came back from the war, they thought, oh, let's just get back into nice little cushy way it was. I don't mean that horribly, the way it was before. And then what it was is when they came back, it wasn't like that at all. And women had changed. But again, maybe what it was is everybody thinks they've come together because of the war and whatever it was. But the war was done on purpose to break up everything. And it did, because now what's happened is men don't really need women. Women don't really need men. And I don't mean that as need. I mean want. You have to want. But
the political optics.
No one's got roles anymore. There's no respect. The only thing we need each other for is probably the conception, and after that, the man can look after or the women can. And then it's a bit like now men don't know who they are and what they are, and it just goes on. And this has been done on purpose, rather than it being, oh, a war happened and then this is the result. It's all been engineered this way.
Yeah, slowly over time they have been. Diluting us and altering our mindset.
So nobody knows who they are anymore.
Well, I know who I am.
Well, we're now the children of the rainbow, aren't we?
Now, what you
the
describing?
Good thing is, this thing with consciousness you're talking about, a lot of flat earthers, or it's like that's what it is with flat earth. This consciousness, it's different now. Now you don't know everything, but now you've woken up. It can never be the same again. All I'm just hoping is that many people just get rid of that ego and just slowly come together better and stop hating on everybody. If you don't like them, don't watch them. We're narcissistic now, just really narcissistic.
Yeah, because that's what anxiety likes. Anxiety likes narcissism, that people would try and prove their loyalty to anxiety, which is actually why, if you get an argument, domestic violence argument, some kind of argument, that's why people don't back down in arguments, because they're both trying to. One of them will attack the other one with an anxiety, and people instinctively use anxiety to counter anxiety, and then it's like one-upmanship of anxiety, and then the cops called. What? And but what you're talking about society, it's just we can tell the character of consciousness by actually the behavior of anxiety actually, because anxiety is only using the cognitive power of consciousness. But how the societies, how the establishment controls society, it's replicating the function of anxiety as it events in the mind, and that's the great revelation. But when people realize, they become conscious, and they become aware that they need an answer, that this is not satisfying them, this is not the truth about it. The very next thing they're going to realize or find out is that they lack the articulation to actually express this. And so that's what I have focused heavily on, is learning how to articulate the actual state of the issue, because it doesn't exist according to the static cognition of anxiety, of those that believe that anxiety is virtuous, about, that those that have grown up in a world where that is actually all they've ever seen.
So what's the difference in the schools you want then? Because unfortunately, even if a lot of us are waking up or whatever we think we are, there's still like a lot of the bad side of it, with egos and just things that shouldn't be there if you've really started to really wake up. You've got to know who you are. A lot of people don't know who they are. They just don't. I'm not okay, you're okay, or I'm not okay, you're not okay. And they're still in these positions in life through what's happened. And it's usually when they're very small. That's where we become asked about, so small. It's not, a lot of it isn't you as an adult. It's actually come from, you feel like you do about yourself from a child.
Yeah, that's right.
So the bit about children, what is it you want them to change in the education then, with what you're doing, with what your book, with what you're promoting, with what you're saying?
Well, I think they focus really heavily on computer stuff, which is wrong, because computers give the impression that you're smart when you're not. This is not. I don't think it's really of value to have kids start believing that to be smart we need these external electronic devices and Facebook and things like that. And so you talk about the education system. Okay, the whole of the experience is the education system. Okay, the whole media experience for sure, but how the parents feel, and there is the very highly nuanced experience of consciousness as a child learning. Okay, and the child that values consciousness has a perception and a perspective where they can distinguish very finely detailed nuances and things. That is the education system. Okay, and so, but my first call.
Do you know what I'd like? Do you know what I'd like? What I think would be really nice is it isn't really the school's responsibility for the children, like their well-being, all of it, while they're at school, yes, but not the whole of this child. They go to school. They're not mummy and daddy, but wouldn't it be nice if the schools, just an hour a week, could be, when they're younger, helping them, teaching them about respecting each other and nice love and kindness, and I think helping them be, like, being a community in their school a bit more maybe, and understanding each other more, rather than all it is nicking, being told off, being shouted at.
Yeah, but I think, out of just pure nature, that's how we are as we grow up as children just like that. We don't grow up hitting other children. That's taught, that's learned from, observations and from others.
That's what I'm saying, Astrid. Wouldn't it be nice when they're small, if the children, just an hour a week about being nice to each other and understanding each other a little bit?
Well, I think, like, the kindergartens here, I mean, I'm in Denmark, the kindergartens here, they do things like that, they do, I know that. And plus,
I think over here, everything is so many regulations that they can't even be proper teachers anymore because they've got so much paperwork to do.
Yeah, and you're not allowed to give any advice or any, medical help, or, I mean, it can be quite serious at times.
So what I'm saying is, it's not really the schools, it's the parents, but of course they've got us working in this system of theirs, isn't it? And the anxiety and the debt and whatever it is, but like the schools know, like it's how many like people don't have paid dinners, you know, like have free dinners. Then they'll know what's happening in that area with how many children are on benefit or whatever. So they know all these things.
Yeah,
they
of course
know
they do.
what is deprived, what's whatever. Do you see what I mean? They know.
Yeah, of
So,
course they know.
unfortunately, the schools then have these children. I mean, I worked in a school, right? Some of these children.
Can I tell you something?
Listen. They were coming in for the breakfast club, going to school, and then going to the after-school club, and then going home. And for a lot of the time, I never really saw them leave any of the buildings and even go outside. Maybe they did at lunchtime, but they're inside and in these clubs and in a school and in a system. And whoa, that's what we've done.
I got some feedback about New Zealand about that. They've got here in New Zealand, they've got this kids can thing, and it's like the advertising is, oh, no child should go to school hungry, and it's basically putting a big bit of peer pressure on the community that we need to help the kids that haven't got enough food and all this kind of thing. And it's a lie. It's a lie. It's the political optics of that, to me, that the establishment don't have any intention of changing their behaviour at all. And they want society to change their behaviour to accommodate what they want. That's what that's about. And there are other instances of this kind of big fat lies, effectively, about what's going on in society. And it's exactly what anxiety does in a mind to control the thoughts of a person. It's this lobbying. It's this lobbying to do something about this thing that's going on.
I think, again, I don't mean to sort of push this out there again, but that's why a lot of flat earthers feel at peace in their heart, because we know so much more of the truth, because we're taking much less notice of that system, even if you have to work in it. You know, our minds are somewhere else now.
Well, here's the way I put that, Karen. Our consciousness has expanded beyond their political boundaries. Okay, that's actually a senior part in the second half of the book. When our consciousness, your consciousness, has expanded beyond this reality they have formatted, right? And that's why we know these answers, because our consciousness now exists outside of their control, right? And this totally explains why teenagers start arguing with their parents, because the teenager's consciousness has expanded beyond.
I've got another way of putting it for you as well then. I have this book up here. It's called I'm Okay, You're Okay, right? But so when a baby's born, it doesn't feel okay. It wants to be picked up, fed, the whole thing. So it goes, I'm not okay, but it feels you're okay. And then, oh my goodness, I can't remember which way around the stances are now. But then comes another stage where that child then doesn't feel okay and doesn't feel you're okay. And this gets to an age of about maybe 1 to 2, where now babying days are over and maybe mummy's now got another baby on the way and life's changed a bit. So, and then comes the next stage where that little child goes, well, I'm naturally now okay, but you're not okay. So do you see how those stances have changed? And then that child, there's still a child that's about 2 or 3. Now, most people, even if it's unconsciously, will live their life, the rest of their life, where I'm not okay, you're not okay, or I'm okay, you're not okay, or you're okay and I'm not okay. In reality, we should be living I'm okay, you're okay. And you've got to understand there's a child, an adult, and a parent inside you as well, all with that negative stuff that you're just talking about. So, I mean, when I was reading, it was like there's probably 250,000 parental tapes running around your head with this crap in it.
Yeah.
And that's how you treat yourself. So quite often, how your parents treated you is how you treat yourself. And then if your child's needs were not met, then you then react like your child did. And there's the broken cookie, and there's mannerisms, and there's the book basically says in this, I'm okay, you're okay. Well, when someone comes and knocks on the door of life, who's going to answer it? Your child, your parent, or your adult? And it should be your adult who thinks. But we just talked about all that. They've kept us so busy that there's no time to grow. You know, especially if you've had children young, you can't grow because you've got these children. And where did you grow? Because you're bumbling along with the children and work and washing the car and doing the grass and all the worries and the fears. This is how they've got us.
Yeah, the political optics is you don't need to do anything else. Yeah, that's what I've noticed about religion, right? The political optics is that they think that, you know, they want to imply that you don't need to learn anything else, right? What you're saying about parenting, you know, and going back to the education system there. Well, let's talk about forgiveness, okay? Because kids are very good at forgiving bad things that happen to them. Like in their mind, like, you know, Stockholm syndrome it's really high level, like high quantities of forgiveness, actually.
That's that one that happened in Helsinki, remember?
Yeah, I know. And so that's
and so it's called Helsinki syndrome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why do people mix that up?
Well, I don't mix it up.
It's like, you know, 9/11 didn't happen in fucking Paris, did it? You know, I mean, people don't mix that up, but yet Helsinki, Stockholm, I mean, what? I don't understand how people mix it up. Sorry. Carry on, James, carry on.
Yeah, well, that's the generic term.
Yeah, generic. What is wrong generic, you know?
That wasn't what I was talking about. Okay. So I think the education system, right, it should actually focus on that. Like you're saying, Karen, having a focus on relationships, on positive relationships, on how to make relationships positive, how to catch any trouble as it begins, how to actually see trouble as it begins in a relationship, like emotional trouble, like someone who's feeling, you know, cranky and like
Maybe they don't need to watch it, James. Maybe we just need to do it. Be it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm proposing. So have that focus. You know, this is actually, you know, this is the craziness of it, because this is actually the natural instincts of kids, of all kids, right? And so to focus on that instead of this being educated about the contingencies where you're in competition with other people, okay, because that's what the political optics of it is we learn to be competitive, okay, and that's why this narcissism thing, the Twitter thing, this is all this instinct of competitiveness, okay, and this is replicating anxiety, because anxiety's not only competing with your own mind, okay, it's making people compete with other minds out of loyalty to anxiety. So this is what is conceptualized sports, okay, and you know, so the education should be of that. You know, there's been, you know, I could talk for quite some time about what they've done to the education system in New Zealand, including overloading.
Can you come back and talk to us a bit more about that another time? We've been kind of going, like we said, an hour and a half, because it's such a deep subject. So we're keeping this one a bit smaller so that it's enough for people to take in, because, yeah, it just is. James, we will finish in a few minutes, but finish off for your last few minutes what you'd like to say to people.
Yeah, no, because so there's this ongoing warfare really against the public, because we're only happy people. We don't mind being actually lower middle class. There's a lot of value to life. You know, there's a lot of great moments we have, and we really enjoy life. We work, and it's a great life. And I honestly believe that really, really wealthy people would actually be jealous of middle class people, because they have such a strong bond with the people around them, where wealthy people actually live an isolated experience, you know, and so
your wealth comes from your heart, really, doesn't it?
What I'm saying.
Well, I also have another book, right? and it's basically saying, would you sell yourself for $1 million? No, you wouldn't. So you're already worth $1 million, whatever money in the first place, because you wouldn't sell yourself for it. And that's the bit you've got to remember. Maybe a lot of people think the glass is half full, empty, but it's half full.
Yeah.
But it's that way of how it's this whole programming that they've done to us.
Yeah, I started going to the
Say
gym.
half full, half empty. I'm asking, have I got a glass?
I started going to the gym.
But I think it is really sad that money is more important than the people. Without the people, there's no money. You know,
exactly.
it's like
money means nothing unless you want it to mean something. It's a piece of paper with a flipping drawing on it, isn't it? But yeah,
because of their anxieties. Because of their anxieties, they feel that money makes them safer because they're unconscious, and so they feel threatened by all sorts of things. You know, if they see a...
Can I say something else, James? I'm not disagreeing with you at all, but for a while I lived on this place called the Cotswold Community. It's a community for therapeutic, very highly disturbed children. And it just so happened my boy's dad was working there and we lived there. And when you find out what's really happened to children behind closed doors, like these children may not have been fed properly for days, weeks, months, never washed properly, left in dirty nappies, seen horrible things. You know, one kid went home and his sister was raped by one of their friends. You know, like they're seeing that kind of stuff, such a young age. So this place was trying to take them out and regress them and give them these boundaries and these things. Because, you know, children, if you don't teach them, they're like wild dogs. It's true. I've lived in a place, I saw it.
If you
these children are now not, they're older because we're only big children, but the level of what these kids have gone through, I don't even want to talk about it because it's too much on a hangout. I'm not going to talk about it, but it wasn't very nice living there.
Yeah. You know, about education, see, if you take the revelation of the 8 laws and the 8 laws of anxiety, that you can figuratively hold in your hand and look at it, and know that it's because of this that we have these really negative outcomes. These people do these things to other people, and especially adults to children, right? It's because of this 8 laws thing again, but it's really extrapolated out to the end of the tether moment situation. That's where the anxiety has pushed them out to.
And the good thing is, James, the good thing is there's people like you now, and there's people in Flat Earth, because it's the people doing this who are waking up, who we're starting hopefully a different way of life. We've got Aaron with the Project Lumen. You know, there was a meet-up yesterday where the people were out talking to each other. So it's the consciousness is starting to change anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, I think to have a qualification of what we're talking about that's tangible and build an articulation. Now, these are the only 2 things to do now. You know, that we know this path. We know the path now, and we need the qualification and of this tangible thing, and then we can actually discuss something. See, I talk to people about my discovery out there, and they immediately recognise what's immediately obvious.
I'm glad you do it out there, because it's out there that hasn't woken up yet.
If you go to my if you go to like get the 8 laws thing off my video and that, and you go and show it to one of these disturbed kids, and you see you see how they react. See if there's any emotional change, any physical reaction when they become aware of this thing. And you see what I've seen. I've seen really dramatic changes in people. Like, whoa, you know. Try it out. I've had wicked results.
It's like there's no hope, and then there is hope.
Well, this is true. Well, that's just exactly it. It is an event that is someone is helping someone is doing something that is to help. It's not just wishful thinking. It's not just pretending you're concerned, okay? It is an actual thing, a tangible thing you could offer them that can help explain why people treat people like this. It is a means, it's something tangible to think about instead of this intangible thing that is anxiety, that is seemingly this urban myth. And so with a tangible thing to discuss, a qualification, it gives something solid for them to actually understand, you know. And so
you know what? Listen, James, twice, I know it was earlier on this year, there was 2 nuclear alerts to 2 different countries. They sure do like frightening the people, don't they, and using it.
You know, look at the book 1984. Okay, they do this thing as a replication of the function of anxiety. Okay,
everybody got that? Can you repeat those words again?
They do this as a replication of the function of anxiety as an event in the mind. Okay, it's a lie. They do it to stay in control, just like anxiety stays in control. It just keeps foisting out all these negative things. And I'm telling you, the revelation of the 8 laws is a qualification that will completely take the power from the establishment. Okay, because they are doing it to replicate the function of anxiety. Okay, that's all there is to it. Just the way those young people that you talked about sit there terrorized, okay, and all seemingly quite calm. Okay, this is like society, and the establishment is terrorizing the society with these threats, imagined threats. Well, as far as I'm concerned, North Korea has always been governed by Wall Street, and Trump is the one who thought of holding the Russia investigation. Okay, it's not the Democrats at all. It's Trump that has done this, actually, I think. And so, again, if we have this,
it probably wasn't even him.
No, I think it was him, because
no, it'd be bigger than him. He's just they're all puppets.
Well, at the moment, he's the most powerful man in the world.
Well, yeah.
And so,
yeah, hang on a sec, James. Anyway, I just want to say we're a flat earth discussion group, and you know we're not getting a little bit too political. I know. Talking about Trump. I mean, love him, hate him. I mean, he's got people for him, he's got people against him, but we don't need to talk about him on here. I'm pretty sure. I mean, it's not that interesting, you know.
Well, it was an analogy to what I was saying about anxiety in the mind and how it's replicated.
James, when you've done this, though, we're going to finish, okay? But do this analogy then.
Well, that was it. The Trump thing was the analogy, because it's really this is a powerful indication of the character of consciousness, is that the event in the mind, which is these young people you're talking about, Karen. Okay, that's the outcome when anxieties have been terrorizing the kid. People have used anxiety to terrorize the child, right? And so then you get these extreme examples, because these kids like you're talking with, that you're nurturing, okay, some people like them that grew up like them, that didn't get any nurturing, end up doing the things that terrorize the people. Okay, and so it's this vicious pattern of circular logic. Okay, it's a vicious cycle. And so how the event in the mind happens, this is replicated, and this is the replication of the function of anxiety. Not only includes something like religion, but it includes the relationship between two things, right? You get 2 things. Someone replicates the function of anxiety to someone else, and when that person hears the replication of the function of anxiety or sees it, it simulates an anxiety attack in the mind. Literally, if you hear it, it simulates the anxiety in your mind because you're hearing it in your mind. And this is what's been going on, and this plays out in kind of a lot of ways where anxiety is replicated. The function of anxiety is replicated. The political optics of the function is reproduced. And but as I'm saying, this is the great moment that we have this qualification, and that it is of something that is tangible. It's not some urban myth. It's a tangible, mathematically sound, watertight qualification of the human condition, the senior feature of the human condition. There's only two. There's only consciousness, and when consciousness has been hijacked for the purposes of anxiety. The cognitive power of consciousness hijacked by the purposes of anxiety, for the political aspirations of anxiety. And because as you said, society's completely backwards, man. It's like, to most guys, women are the center of the universe. We go out of our way. I've driven for hours and hours over country to meet a woman, even for only 10 minutes, because that's the effect women have on men.
Well, she's telling you all about the flat Earth.
Flat Earth. Yeah. Well, you know what? And that
James probably could fill a podcast of 8 hours with talking. He loves to explain this, but we've got to kind of wind up, James.
Yeah, you've done a huge, tremendous job, Karen.
Yeah, it's late now. Well, I'm sorry to say, for me.
Oh, thank you, James. But again, we're here talking to you, and you're a very clever guy, very articulate, clever guy. So we appreciate the fact that you have seen all this, and you're putting it very analytically, aren't you? Yeah,
I have to do that because this is actually the nature of the issue. It's according to the carrot of consciousness. It's only a lie that anxiety has appropriated consciousness. And it's taken, it takes credit for consciousness's cognition, but actually it's not. So the realm of the problem has these, this is actually the nature of the problem. And that's to be honest, this has to be said. You've got to do diligence to consciousness, man. I've got to explain it as it exists.
Well, I'm pretty sure that a lot of people in the chat room understood everything you were saying there, James. A lot of this is actually for people who have not woken up.
Yeah. Well, they can know. You see, the political optics. Look at the music in movies and how you feel about what's going on in that movie. Look at the music. The music in movies is like the political optics of life, and so that's the big lesson. Is that's the real economy of thought. And that's the real economy of the political sphere. It's all driven by the political optics, which is why the replication of the function of anxiety has value. Okay, this is all the real. This is actually the real world, and why it's turning to crap, because they can't get any more development within this political format. Right? They can't do it, and so we start here. Now is only the beginning.
What's your book again called, James? Because we've got to wrap up now. I said you could go on forever, and I know that you haven't been on for a while, and I know that you've been working lots lately. But what's your book called again?
Okay, the book is called The Observed Morality of Civilization, and it will be the end of the year. The end of the year that I'll be considering publishing it.
Cool.
And it's kind of published in all my YouTube vids anyway. It's all in there, It's like.
Yeah, I put a link to your channel in the description of this hangout. Astro, is there anything you want to say?
No, it's just deep as ever. I'm going to have to watch that about 9 times, I think, before I can get to grips on half of it.
You know what?
I said, people like layman's terms because it's just, I love it when it's, I've been brought up with the keep it simple, stupid, terminology. And it is for me.
But nothing in this whole thing we've woken up to, Astral, is just simple, is it?
No, I know. I know. Well, it's nice listening to you, James. But like I say, I need to see it a few times, man, to get to.
Hey, I have before. I've watched videos 3-4 times to really get my head around what's possible. You know, what to get all those tangible like little things going on in there.
But it also needs to be for this outside world, because a lot of flat earthers have woken up, at least some of it, or if not a lot of it, because we understand that we've been controlled and lied to, and the fear bit. Yeah, probably you more that they used our fear. Yeah, I got that right back. Yeah. But that's what we know they do, using everything all the time to play their games. But James, it is always really interesting talking to you. I know you're going to come back to Sun and Moon and talk some more. But we're going to end this hangout now, and it's been great. Thank you very much, everybody in the chat room. And thank you, Astral, and thank you, James.
Thank you, James. Thanks everyone in the chat room too.
Yeah, and thank you. We'll speak to James soon. Bye, everybody.